We all know the story of Lazarus, right? The man Jesus raised from the dead. It's one of the most incredible miracles you'll ever hear about. But what if I told you the story we all think we know is really just the last few minutes of a much bigger, much more human drama?
Because we always focus on the miracle, but behind that miracle, there was a man with a really deep friendship, a truly crushing burden, and a very, very specific prayer that kind of set the whole thing in motion. So today we're going to peel back the layers of the legend and get to know the man himself.
So to really get the miracle, you first have to understand the friendship. See, before Lazarus was this famous symbol, he was a trusted friend, a refuge. They were connected by this incredibly deep and personal bond.
And the language here, it tells you everything. These aren't just, casual greetings. The sources show Jesus calling Lazarus, my dear friend, my perfect friend, over and over again. This points to a relationship that was just on another level of closeness and respect.
And this friendship wasn't just talk. It was real, practical support. Lazarus was a very wealthy man, and he put all of it to work for the cause. His home, it was a safe haven. He quietly bankrolled the ministry. He handled the nitty-gritty logistics like buying a servant when Jesus asked or lending out wagons. He was that solid, reliable support system working behind the scenes.
But it went even deeper than money or wagons. This is what's really amazing. Jesus saw him as a trusted confidant, someone he could actually entrust and confide his will to. Think about that level of trust, and it's that incredible bond that makes the story of Lazarus' suffering just so much more heartbreaking.
So you have this beautiful friendship, but right alongside it, there was this profound anguish. Lazarus' life was basically defined by a war on two fronts, a battle against horrible social shame and another one against his own body falling apart.
On the one hand, he was carrying the crushing weight of his family's public disgrace, something he called the fire of Mary. And at the same time, his own body was failing him in the most awful way, eaten up by a disease that covered him in sores. Oof. This line from his sister Martha, it just cuts right to the bone, doesn't it? It shows you just how badly the scandal around their other sister, Mary Magdalene, had wrecked their lives. This wasn't just idle gossip. This was complete social ruin. It meant no future, no marriage prospects, just isolation. And Lazarus got the worst of it, personally. Can you imagine? Walking through your own town and having kids spit at you? Or having the religious leaders, the scribes, publicly call you an accomplice to your sister's sin? That was his everyday life.
And right here, this is where you see how all that shame on the outside became this raging torment on the inside. As he got sicker and started to become delirious, the truth of his pain came out. This wasn't just embarrassment anymore. It was a fire that he felt was literally burning up his flesh and his spirit.
So, as his body is finally giving out, Lazarus makes one last plea. But the answer that came wasn't healing, it was death. I mean, just think about this. He's lying there, dying, his body literally rotting away, and he prays with this unbelievable faith. He's not just asking for a cure. He's asking for a specific, direct command, Lazarus, come out. And he gives it a purpose, to rise up and serve. That is just a staggering statement of belief.
Now, you'd think his best friend would come running, right? But Jesus does the exact opposite. He gets the news, and he waits. He deliberately lets Lazarus die. For his grieving sisters, Martha and Mary, this must have felt like a complete and total abandonment. But here, we finally get the reason. Jesus explains that this whole thing, the sickness, the waiting, the death itself, it was all part of a bigger plan. The point wasn't to stop death from happening. The point was to show his power over death, all for the glory of God.
And that, of course, brings us to the moment we all know, the call to a new life. But now, hopefully, it carries a whole lot more weight. And just look at this. It's just stunning. The words that Jesus yells at the tomb are the exact words Lazarus prayed for on his deathbed. His very specific, faith-filled plea is answered literally word for word.
And the man who walks out isn't some zombie. He is completely transformed. The sources say his decaying, ulcer-covered skin was made perfectly new again. He's standing there, agile and steady. This wasn't just bringing him back to life, it was a total recreation.
And this really gets to the heart of the whole story. The miracle wasn't the end of the line, it was the start of a whole new mission. Lazarus got his life back to fulfill that second part of his prayer, to serve you.
He became living, breathing proof of divine power, a walking, talking piece of evidence for everyone to see.
And then the story comes full circle. After his own resurrection, Jesus shows up to see Lazarus one last time, and he's not there to teach or to give a command. He's there to say thank you, my faithful friend. In the end, it all comes back to that profound personal friendship that started it all.
You know, Lazarus' story kind of forces us to look past the big, flashy miracle and ask a much more personal question. He was given the ultimate second chance, and he used it to serve a purpose bigger than himself. So it leaves you wondering, right? If you were given a new life, a total fresh start, what would you do with it?